bold journalism,
But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
exposing lawlessness,
Hernandez, who is ideological,
finding the truth,
and use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
What's going on, thought criminals? Welcome to Frontlines. I am your host, Drew Hernandez. The leftist media is totally collapsing in front of your eyes for obvious reasons. CNN, CNBC are having some tough times with their NPC talking heads. People are turning off their propaganda, and for good reason, because they're lying to them. And on top of this, the clown world is raging on, and we have some insane footage and content to show you. We will react to it all. Of course, I could not do this alone today. Joining me today on the show is host of Unapologetic from Prager University, Amala Upanobi. This will be a fun show, so stay tuned. But before we get into this, inside every progressive is totalitarian screaming to get out. And the team at Front Page Magazine has been unmasking these totalitarians since the earliest days of the internet. Founded by David Horowitz, Front Page Magazine has spent over 2 decades fighting the radical left's efforts to destroy America. Front Page's talented roster of authors will help you stay up to date with the latest trends in American conservatism. Very important. I have no doubt that you will enjoy the content that they are publishing on a regular basis. As you know, it takes a village to fight the radical left's efforts to destroy America. That is why, as a fan of my show, you should also check out these guys over at Front Page Magazine by visiting frontpagemag.com. And while you're there, support their cause by making a tax-deductible donation. Go to frontpagemag.com. My name is Drew Hernandez, and you are now on the front lines. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Front Lines. Host of Unapologetic with PragerU, Amala Upanobi. Amala, thank you for joining me again. I'm super excited to have you back on the Front Lines. You are not a stranger to this show. How have you been? What have you been up to? You're like, oh, you're killing it everywhere. Every time I open up Instagram, I just see a video of Amala just like really ripping into somebody on the left.
Oh, thank you so much, Drew. I will say I've been keeping it busy. We got a lot of material to talk about. We're at no shortage of stories to cover and issues that we have to break down. So that's what I've been doing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. Well, let's talk about the media, right? Because you and I are actively engaged, not only going head to head with, political ideologies from the other side when it comes to, people at the ground, or when you go to a college and you're engaging with people, having conversations or doing man on the street, or just on social media in the comment sections. But when it comes to the media, because you've been on shows like Dr. Phil, you've been on some pretty high-profile platforms where you're engaging with these ideas in terms of the media sphere, which is like a whole other animal, because these people, man, they're just straight propagandists and liars. Here's a video I wanted you to react to. Here's Jim Cramer from CNNBC calls for a propagandist. Let's take a look at this video, Amalan. I want you to react to it.
Sure.
And they got to deal with, what do you do if you told people the way to beat this is no vaccine, and now you have a vaccine? So I think what you need is a propagandist.
Outside of the state infrastructure.
Exactly.
To start moving political opinion.
But I think when we think of propaganda, we think about other regimes that we didn't really appreciate. You're mighty silent.
I am silent. I'm just thinking about those poor people stuck at Disney, Shanghai Disney for... it's the worst places to be stuck, but still.
Chief, it's a real small world after all.
Wild, Amala. And they wonder why people are losing trust in the media. Calling for a propagandist?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Right. They're saying the quiet part out loud, Drew, is what's happening here. And we've known this for a really long time. We've known this is what's happening in the media, but to hear it said out loud and just so blatantly shows what stage we're in when it comes to this process. And I think what's going to happen is a lot of reasonable, rational Americans are waking up, they're seeing it, and they're tuning it out. They're over it.
Absolutely. And I think we see that more and more frequently. Like, how could you not, sit there and feel disrespected unless you're just like a mindless NPC, you just worship these people and believe everything they say. But isn't it like insulting? I don't know about you, but when you see these people lying, not only about you, right? Your identity, you know, as a black person or me as a Latino or whatever, right? White people, it's insulting that they actually believe you're that low IQ enough to not pick up on this stuff when they're lying about you personally. But don't you think more people are waking up to the reality that if you lie to my face on a nightly basis, maybe you hate me?
Yeah, they are. I mean, the ratings are showing that people are no longer watching these shows. They're no longer choosing to tune in for blatant lies. They are quite literally peeing on you and trying to tell you that it's raining. And people have realized it. They're waking up. I think that's why independent media is going to be on the rise in the coming years. And it is already now. People are looking to individuals that they trust. They're not necessarily looking for somebody to lay out every single instance and tell you all the objective facts of the matter, but they're looking at somebody who's going to approach these stories and what's actually happening in their communities in good faith. When you turn to the media, they're instead telling you things like crime is down, or we're not in an economic recession, and we're the party of unity. All of these different lies are getting spun right in front of people's faces, and they truly think we're stupid. It's unbelievable.
That's the thing too. Like this comes from a place of like an elitist mindset, right? Like, because if you truly do believe that people are, and I don't know, Amla, maybe in some cases there are like a group of people in this country and the world that quite literally are stupid enough to believe this stuff. Like it is what it is. They watch this stuff religiously. They actually believe that people like Don Lemon care about them and care about race issues or care about black people. Says white supremacist this, white supremacist that, is literally in an open relationship with a white guy. It's like, it's always like that. But here we are. Here's some to prove what Amala is saying. Don Lemon's news show, CNN This Morning, bombs in debut. Ratings are tanking. Jake Tapper's primetime slot at CNN is ending. There's another one. CNBC cancels Shepard Smith's show after 2 years, anchored to exit network. And the common thread is ratings are tanking. Amala, you're 100% spot on. People are waking up. This is just, it's like, come on now. It's open at this point. Everybody sees it and knows it.
You're right. And they tried to roll out CNN Plus and that ended up flopping. Meanwhile, you have people like Joe Rogan who are getting 10 plus million viewers per average episode. And again, it's because they're finding people that they trust. They've relied on lying for a really long time, boogeymanning people, victimizing people. But now that people are recognizing that what they're seeing in their communities and outside their front door is not what is being displayed by the news, it's really hard to listen to these people speak to you. And I question whether or not the people who still choose to listen to it are necessarily stupid, or whether or not the media is still very good at tugging on the heartstrings, at utilizing emotions and manipulating people into believing things that benefit them and their agenda. And I used to be one of those people. I was manipulated, and I'm just waiting. I think they've gone over their skis a little bit, and people are going to start to wake up.
You know, I would probably say maybe it's a little bit of both, you know? I mean, if you really take a look at the political landscape and the way that the media propagates and, like you said, emotionally, intellectually, without people realizing, manipulates people on a daily basis, and you tug on those heartstrings, you win a lot of people over emotionally, unfortunately, right? But here's the thing. I wanted to ask you this as well. I mean, here we are, midterms are, days away. The far left is just openly continuing to pander. They're slandering everybody that's a political opponent. They're calling Hispanics white supremacists in freaking Portland. They're demonizing black people that don't follow suit. It's the same thing over and over again, right? But it amplifies during election seasons. What do you personally think? What do you personally think is happening within the black community right now? Are a lot of people finally waking up? Are they starting to see things that they're being manipulated? What's your take on that's on the horizon with some of these minority communities in terms of the media? Do you think that they're seeing that they're being manipulated and that their skin color is just literally being used for the purpose of votes and narrative?
Drew, I think large sums of Black Americans are starting to recognize that. I think I read a poll earlier today that said 82% of Black women say crime is at the top of their list when it comes to them voting in a couple of days. And if crime is on your list, you're going for the GOP, you're going Republican. We also have over 20% of Black Americans saying, I'm going to step outside the bounds of what's expected to me, and I'm going to vote Republican as well, because that's what's going to change our community. The Democrats don't really have a lot to run on here. They can't say that the economy is booming. They can't say that they're handling crime. They can't say that they've handled the public education problems that we have in this country right now. Really, the only stronghold they have is with running on abortion and hoping that a lot of young women come out to support their ideas for the sake of being anti the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So I think Black America is waking up, and it's again because the news cannot lie to you about what's happening in your own community. When you don't feel safe living in the city that you're in, even going to work, that's where you're going to vote. That's what's going to influence you, not what anybody on CNN says.
I mean, to go to your point, like we've been talking to reporters that are on the ground in the George Floyd Mecca, the epicenter, right? Where it all went down, and it is falling apart. It is not safe to be there. And that is literally, quite literally, ground zero for defunding the police and a lot of minority communities and all people, right? But the ones that get manipulated are waking up. They're seeing like, this is bad. Like, this is actually doing damage to us. So when I say it's a good thing, it's not that I like that that's happening. Like, yes, those people, yeah, you know, it's like, it's, I guess it's a good thing people are waking up that to some of these ideas are really destructive and can get you killed. Hopefully that will wake people up. I know a lot of things are waking people up, just like Amala and PragerU. I wanted to get your reaction to some of this stuff. Here's I mean, our generation is screwed, man. Quite literally screwed and taken over by demons and Satan. Here's this demonic girl coming out and saying, I turned my fallopian tubes into a necklace. I think we have a still of that. She's a 22-year-old woman, has opted to get her fallopian tubes extracted from her body, and she turned them into a piece of jewelry to tether around her neck.
Wow. I don't know how much I have to say. I mean, I'm hoping that this medical procedure was not done in the voluntary sense of I just don't want children, and maybe that there was some other medical problem that led to her having to have these procedures, because I do think that age is far too young to make an irreversible decision like that. But to wear it around your neck is a really, really questionable thing. I don't know what the messaging is there, what she's trying to achieve, Drew.
It's like, you know, like how like the ancient, you know, like Aztecs and Mayans, like human sacrifice, pulling out like human organs and like offering it to the god. I don't know if that, to me, I see that. We've been there before. Humans have been there before. And there's just this weird, grotesque obsession with the left and like human body parts and genitals. You know what I'm talking. It's just, I don't know, man. I just think it's part of the total depravity that we're seeing right now here in the United States, across the globe. And it's grotesque. It literally, everyone's face is the same. Just like, what are these people? Amala, why?
Yeah.
Why? How do we get here? Why? What's your take on it?
You know, I think we're certainly trying to normalize the abnormal, and I think that's part of it. And we are trying to feel something, I think, in the young generation. We are devoid of meaning and devoid of value, and we are clinging on to anything that makes us feel like we are part of some great struggle or part of some great fight. So for that girl, it might be representing this feminist fight for her by wearing that body part around her neck. And it does speak to maybe just a lack of vision for young people right now. And I hope that it gets better. I hope we actually find something meaningful to maybe fight for or fight about. But so far, we're not there yet.
Well, I definitely think that we have an entire generation that's being manipulated. That's why there are a bunch of detransitioners coming out that are telling their stories, that are coming out and saying, I've been manipulated by doctors, by politicians, by activists, by social media, played a huge role in manipulating my mind and bringing me to this point. That's going to continue to happen. I mean, I have hope. That's my prayer, that this generation that's being manipulated, groomed, targeted, and preyed on will backlash at some point, because most victims that go through abuse end up in some point like that, where they wake up to the reality they've been manipulated, that they've been abused. And it's a day of reckoning when that happens. And people that have been through that know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not an easy thing to go through, but I think that's what we're going to see on a generational scale. Well, I mean, speaking of manipulators, even at like a political level, here's the VP of the Ohio State Board of Education, Amala, an educator, Martha Manchester, not knowing what biological sex is. Would you look at that? Take a look at this video.
There are, as Dr. Hernandez said, I looked up what is biological sex. What is the definition of that? there are so many definitions out there. I was amazed at all the definitions that there are for biological sex, and how can we sit here and say no, there's just one, and that it's scientific fact. I guess that would be the issue I take with that right in the beginning, is that it's not scientific fact. If you look at the science, there are many different things, and why, I don't know, but there are, and we need to be honest about that, I think.
Amala, the vice president of the Ohio State Board of Education.
I mean, this is why education is going to be a hot button issue when it comes to voting in these midterms, because people are fed up with hearing things like this. And to her point about there being so many definitions about biological sex, it's probably important to look up when those definitions were created. And I'll go out on a very strong limb here and say they are new. That is what they do. They utilize language. They create new definitions and new words as a means to confuse and manipulate people. And if you memory wiped every single human being living on the earth right now, and we had to start from scratch with all the science and all the data that we had to collect, we would come to the same conclusion, that there are two biological sexes, not only in the human species, but in every single mammalian species. And that is what we would find with science. So for her to say that we are not following science or that we are not up to date is totally false.
Well, who's the chief architect? Who's the chief biological engineer? It's God. It's the book of Genesis. God created male and female. It's very simple. So it makes sense to me when these Satanists, these people that are indoctrinated by demons, they try and position themselves in that position of God. So they have to redefine everything. They have to redefine words. They have to redefine language. They have to redefine science according to their terms and their definitions, especially when it comes to humanity, because that is the genesis of our entire human race. One last thing I want you to react to, Amala, before I lose you. Here we go. Prominent New York trans activist arrested for allegedly soliciting a minor. Here's the story. Trans and HIV activist was arrested last month in the Bronx after corresponding with someone whom they thought was a 14-year-old boy identified as Josh on the LGBT dating app Grindr, according to the criminal complaint obtained by Fox News Digital. Are we continuing to see this targeting of children, Amala, and the sexualization of children and the innocence of children being violated? Is this becoming something in our society where it's just, I guess it's just another one? Like, where do we draw the line? Obviously, we know the answer to this question, but I want to hear from you. How much are we going to tolerate this stuff, man?
It's difficult because we start to get into questions of who are the major players in an industry like child sex trafficking, which is running rampant in this country. We are the number one business people when it comes to human trafficking across the entire world. The United States is the biggest when it comes to human trafficking, and that is devastating. It's a horrifying thing to hear. It requires a lot of activism and people doing work surrounding this. But I think you're going to come to find, doing just even a little bit of research into this subject matter, that there are a lot of elitists in this country who are invested in the business of human trafficking. And it's a conversation that they are unwilling to have because they are implicated in the conversations that are being had. And it's not just in the LGBT community. It is across all demographics in this country, where young women in particular are the major victims. And it needs to be a conversation that's had, but unfortunately the powers that be do not want to address it.
Absolutely agree. And it's crazy because we have these so-called humanitarians that claim to care about humans when it comes to climate change, or claim to care about females when it comes to abortion, or they claim to care about trans kids only when they don't want to de-trans. It's always the same thing. We care and we love humans, we love children, but when it's not according to our political narrative, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to bring it up. And that is the essence of evil, picking and choosing who gets a voice and which innocence we're going to defend and which human rights we're going to defend or not. But that's who these people are, Amala, because they just don't care. They only care about you if you fit the narrative. You and I both know that. Where can people follow you, listen to you, and watch your great show? What are the links, all your socials? I just want all of my audience on Rav, Rumble, Getter, just flood to everything you're doing because you guys are doing amazing, amazing work.
Sure. Thank you so much. You can find me everywhere at Amala Epinobi. And if that's too much of a mouthful, you can type in Unapologetic Live, and that's where you'll find my podcast on all platforms.
Well, there you have it. Amala, thank you for joining me today. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Drew.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. There she goes. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a full force attack. We talk about this all the time on the show. Whether it's gay, whether it's trans, whether it's straight. Obviously, we draw the line. We draw the line clearly and early. Anyone trying to come after the innocence of children, it's never tolerable. We're never going to tolerate that. Anyone that's advocating for MAPS, minor attracted persons, anyone that's simping for pedos, whether gay, straight, or trans, anyone that's just trying to creep their way in and slide their way in and try and think that, oh, children, yes, children should be able to have the option to have any kind of relationship that they want. That's the approach that's going to be taken on the innocence of our children. And you're seeing it. You've been seeing it for years now. Now it's just being made mainstream and openly here in the media. We're all seeing that happen in real time. But the line that gets drawn is a line that is bold, that is seen by all people, that is not meant to be crossed, because the innocence of children is sacred, it is holy, it is meant to be protected and never violated. Because we as human beings, doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what language you speak, doesn't matter where you come from, anyone that's coming out and that wants to violate the innocence of children is a threat to a society, is a threat to the public, is a threat to all children around them, and should be dealt with legally, swiftly, and effectively by the rule of law. There should be no tolerance of pedophilia in a society, ever at any time, any moment in human history. But we've seen history repeat itself, where this all gets normalized, where children get sexualized, and it becomes an act of love in the eyes of a depraved society. And that is exactly what we are seeing right now. The media is falling. This left-wing cult is falling. And even the right-wing rhinos are falling. The globalists are being exposed, and the deep state mask is being ripped off because of you great patriots that continue to expose this on a daily basis. Now is the time to get louder. Now is the time not to be silent. Now is the time to expose this even further. Share these links everywhere, wherever you can. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the Front Lines, and I will see you guys on the next one.
We must play offense. Game on.
You expect the rest of the world to live in La La Land. We're not.
We've been saying these things from day one.
Our solemn vow to you: be good, be brief, be gone.
You might find yourself changing your opinion on things you've never even thought twice about. That really sets America apart.
You are not ready for season 2. This is Reloaded.
My life tale and my truth has been to fight socialism.
Are you familiar with structural racism?
Yeah, it's a myth.